Okay, good morning everyone. We're going to start with our webinar. This is something that Ivy Professional School is doing. We have a series of webinars that we are conducting every weekend. The topics are on SAS, some of the very important topics that are required in the analytics industry for SAS, Excel, and MS Access is going to be there. So all the important tools and topics that you would require to get a good understanding of the business of the analytics industry. We're going to cover them, and these videos that are going to get recorded would also be available on the YouTube so that you can go through it. I would request, before I start this session, I would request all of you to mute your mics so that we don't get any disturbance. However, if you have a question, definitely be free and you can interrupt in between while I'm talking. And once I'm done with my topic, and then you can ask me the question. You don't have to wait till the very end to ask me any questions. Right? Okay, so we are going to cover a very, very important topic in Excel, also required in the analytics industry, that is Vlookup. Now, I assume that most of you are aware of Vlookup, the basic session. Is somebody, hello? On the call. Somebody, hello? Okay, so I'm assuming most of you are aware of the Vlookup function. So what is the full form of a Vlookup function? The full form is a vertical lookup. V stands for vertical. And why do we require a Vlookup in the data analytics industry? Now, Excel is used for both the work for data handling as well as data analysis. When you're working in analytics industry, you're not working with hundreds and 200s of 50 data. You're working with thousands and thousands of data. So when it comes to doing handling of the data of such a huge database, if you do not know the advanced features, or if you do not know the functions like Vlookup, HLookup, index and match, then it becomes, your work will be done, however, it will be very time consuming. Hence, it is required by the people in analytics industry for you to be very much aware of the functionality of Vlookup. So, let's look at the syntax of the Vlookup. What is Vlookup used for in the industry? Vlookup is used for extraction. And from the huge amount of data, if we have to extract the data from the same sheet, from two different sheets, or from a different workbooks, extract the data, pull it out, and make a new table, and then do further analysis for it. That is what Vlookup is used for. The most important thing in Vlookup is basically the syntax of the Vlookup. Even though this is the basic part, I would like to go through it because I think this is the most important part that anybody requires to understand in Vlookup. If you look at the syntax, it's got 4 arguments in it. 3 are compulsory and 1 is optional. The first syntax is lookup value. Now, what is a lookup value? Lookup value is something that I know, against which I'm going to look for something. For example, let's see, we have a table at the bottom. This is the table. You see there's a table over here, and there are certain numbers 0, 5, 10, 20, name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4. Those are the name against this number. Now, in the table on your right, if I put a number over here, let's say number 5, and based on number 5, I want to pull the corresponding name. So what I know is the number 5, against which I'm going to pull a value, which is the name. So 5 becomes my lookup value. Now, the more important thing is, now 5 is available on the table on the right, as well as table on the left. So when I'm writing a Vlookup formula over here, which should I refer to the lookup value as? Should I refer to E13 or should I refer it to as D14? Please remember, lookup value will never be in your master database from where you're trying to extract a value. Always try to refer to it in the table where you're doing the extraction. And what is the reason behind it? This is a small table for illustration of a Vlookup. However, in analytics, you are going to have 20,000 data or 30,000 data. In those 20 and 30,000 data, would it be easy for you to go and click on the lookup value from the database? It won't be. Hence, it is advised never to pick the lookup value from your master table. Always the lookup value is going to exist in the table where you're trying to extract the value. For example, over here, it is going to be E13 and it's not going to be picked from column B14. So that becomes your lookup value. The second argument is your table array. What is a table array? Table array is your master database. However, it may or may not be the complete master database. Why? Because in table array, the first column of your table array should consist of the lookup value. Now what is my lookup value? My lookup value is this number 5. 5 happens to be in the first column of this table array, hence I can pick this entire table. But what if I had another column over here? Let's say if I have another column over here with the serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And in this case, what will be my table array? It is not going to be starting from the lookup value, but it still starts from the second column of this table. The reason being, the first column of the table array should consist of the lookup value, and in this case, it happens to be in the second column of the table. The third argument is the column index number. What is the column index number? It is the column number of your table array. In our case, this is the table outlined with the red is my table array. So the column number of the table array from where I am trying to extract the data. Now I know the number 5, and based on these numbers I am trying to extract the names. So what am I trying to extract? The names. And name happened to fall in column number 2 of your table array. So the column index number would be 2. And common mistakes that people make in the column index number is they count from the starting of the table. Like in this case, we have 3 columns, and sometimes people make a mistake of saying column index number is 3. But please be aware, we are not referring in the main table. We are referring in the table array, which may be the complete table or part of the data, part of the master database, depending on what is your lookup value. So in our case, it is going to be number 2, and it always has to be a number, like the name of the argument suggests, column index number. So it has to be a number. The last thing is the range lookup. Now range lookup is an optional argument. There are 2 values that you can put for range lookup. It is either true or 1, and the second argument is false or 0. Now what is the use of saying true or false? Like it says in the argument itself, when you are putting false as a value or 0 as a value of the range lookup, then it does an exact match. And if you put true or 1 for the range lookup value, then it does an approximate match. And since this is an optional argument, if I do not give 0 or 1, true or false, then what will it behave as? It behaves as 1, that is true, and it works as an approximate match. So let's do an exact match first. So I'm going to put a 0 and press enter. So against number 5, I get my answer, name 2. If I change it to 10, I'm getting name 3. If I'm changing to 20, I'm getting name 4. So this is the basic of, very, very basic of Vlookup function. Does anybody have a question on this? I guess there is no question, so we move on. Now, this is very basic of Vlookup, but we may require a lot of different situations are there where a simple Vlookup is not going to work, especially when you're dealing with large amount of data. Oh, there is a question by Vikas Sharma, and the question is, what is the name column was on the left hand side of the number? That's a good question, Vikas. Now what happens, there are 2 limitations of Vlookup. The first limitation is that if they are, let's say number 20 that I've put over here exists 2 times, then it would fetch only name for 1 time, whatever the name is front of the first 20 that is available. And the second limitation of Vlookup is what you have rightly pointed out over here, that if the name existed on the left side of the number, then Vlookup cannot work. Because again, if we look at the argument, the requirement of the arguments, for example, in the case of your table array, if name, let's just change this table. Let's say this is the name and this is the number, right? And based on the number, I wanted to extract the name. Now, if we are going to start with the Vlookup function, this happens to be a lookup value, something that I know of. Now, how will you pick a table array? Because the principle of table array is that the first column of the table array should consist of the lookup value. So, if this has to be the first column, I can only move forward, but I cannot move backward and pick a table. Hence, Vlookup fails in this part. For this thing, we can either use a function called index or we can use hlookup. Now, hlookup and index and match is something that we are going to cover in further webinars. But to show you very quickly, if we have to use index function, this is my array. And my row number, I'm going to use a match function. This is my lookup array. I can still get it, but it is not going to be happening based on Vlookup. It is going to be done by using index function. Any other questions? There is a question by Debajelina. For the huge data, how would we know the exact column index number? Again, something that I'm going to cover in the further webinars. It is done by using functions called match. Like if you look at this formula that I've put, I've also used a match function, and this is what we're going to use. So what is the role of a match function? Is basically to find the position of an element in an array. So if I have a huge database, you're absolutely correct that we won't sit and start counting which column number, because whenever we do manual process in Excel, we are going to create more errors in it. So we do not count. Instead of that, we use a match function. Again, I can give you an example. Let's say if I have a this is the database I have. Okay. So I've got region, I've got cream, premium, shower gel, shampoos, talc, toilet soaps, and so on and so forth. And what I wish to do is populate a table like this. Now I can create a table like this very easily using a basic Vlookup. However, in that case, I'll have to write 3 different Vlookup functions, one for each column. And each time I'm writing a Vlookup function, I will have to count which column is cream, which column is shampoo, and which column is toilet soap, which is time consuming as well as prone to errors. So over here we can use a Vlookup function. Lookup value would be the region, because that is what is placed vertically. Table array can be the entire table, because by region we are trying to find what is the quantity in each case for the cream, shower gel, shampoo, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to pick the entire table, comma. Next comes the column index number, which you have asked. Instead of counting, I'll use a match function. And what I want to do over here is find the value of, or find the position of cream. So that becomes my lookup value of match. My lookup array is going to be my header, because that's where I'm trying to find the position of cream. It would be this region, comma, 0 for exact match, comma, 0 for exact match of my VLOOKUP. And I'll get the answer Pondicherry 0.22. Now you would have noticed that I have not counted the column index number for cream, and we can quickly check for Pondicherry. So it's 0.22. And this whole function, since I've made it using a match in VLOOKUP, this is a dynamic function. So all I have to do is do the right referencing. And my formula is good to go. So I can copy and basically paste to populate the entire table. Again, this in elaborate we can cover in our next webinar, where we can see the different combination of VLOOKUP and match.
Ishani? Hello?
Yeah.
Actually, they couldn't see the formula at all, because where you're writing the formula is not in the screen. So you may want to decrease the resolution or increase the resolution of your laptop. They're not able to see the formula at all.
Now are you able to see the formula?
Yeah, not completely yet.
Still not.
Yeah, now we are. Now we are able. So you may want to just quickly do the last part again.
Sure. Okay, so what I was talking to you about is a combination of VLOOKUP and match. So first is the lookup value. Lookup value is going to be the region, because regions are kept in vertically. Then we are going to talk about the table array. Table array in our case, in this particular case, is going to be the entire table, since the region happens to be in the first column of the table. Then we are going to move to column index number. And like you have asked, do we have to manually count column index number? No. What we do, we use a function called match. And in the match, what are we trying to find? Column index number. We are trying to find column index number of these headers: cream, shampoo, toilet soap. These are the things that I'm trying to find the position of. And like I have told you, match is a function which helps you to find the position of an element in an array. So I want to find which position does cream come in that particular array. So lookup value is something that I know of. So it's going to be M14, which is cream. Now, how do you count? Where is cream? You count it horizontally in the header of your table. So that happens to be B5 to I5 over here. I'll just show you the table again. This is a lookup array for my match function. And moving back, the third argument of match function is a match type. Again, 0 stands for exact match, so we're going to put a 0. And then finishing our VLOOKUP function for the range lookup of 0. And then just putting the right references, the dollar signs on L15, the table arrays, and M14, we get an answer. And this is a dynamic function that we have created, and we can easily copy paste it throughout. There is another question by Vikas. Do you think doing a VLOOKUP on huge data set is time-taking processing time, and Excel is not the right tool to do such kind of matches? We should go and join in some other software. Yeah, Vikas, it depends on the data set that you have. If you have like 50,000 data set, definitely you're correct. Putting a VLOOKUP function and executing a VLOOKUP function for so many data sets is actually pretty time consuming. So this whole work can all run on SAS, and a lot of professionals, the software in their companies, they would do it on the SAS software, and this takes, it can happen within minutes, whereas if you're doing it in Excel, it would take some more time. So yes, we do refer to some other softwares when we have extremely big data sets. Any other questions? Okay, moving on, we are going to go to the advanced part now. Like I was saying, the not only we do the basic VLOOKUP is not something that we only have to do in the industry. For example, let's look at this database where I've got this table at the bottom of the sales rep, and I've got the states and I've got some IDs. Now each sales rep in a different state has a different ID. This is a table that I have. Now if I wish to extract, because VLOOKUP is meant for extractions. So if I wish to extract based on a sales rep and a state, if I want to extract the ID, how would I do that? Now, but like I told you, what is the limitation of VLOOKUP? Limitation of VLOOKUP is something which is happening multiple number of times, right? What VLOOKUP will do, if I am looking up through Joe, now what will happen in Joe? Joe will only put the first ID available. If Joe is occurring multiple times, it will not be able to extract all of them. And right now I am not only looking for all the values of Joe, but I am looking for a combination of a sales rep in the state. If I am looking for Joe in CA, I should be able to put JA5688589 in this particular column. So this is what we are trying to look from two different columns. This is called two-column lookup. Now to do a two-column lookup, first thing that you have to do is the values by which you're trying to look for it. You are going to make another column, make that as the first column of your table and join the two together. Now how do you join, or how do you concatenate the two values in Excel? Either you can use a function called concatenate, or we use the symbol for it. So to join it, equal to sign, we are going to join B9, ampersand is a sign for joining, and then the state C9, B9 ampersand C9. So we get Joe and WA. Now what I would recommend, whenever you're joining the two entities, always put a small hyphen sign in between those entities. I'm just going to put hyphen. Now hyphen is a text. So I'm putting B9 ampersand hyphen. Since it is a text value, it has to be in the double quotes, ampersand C9. Right? So this is the first value that is coming up, Joe underscore WA. And we can copy paste this value to generate the first column. Now when we are going to do a VLOOKUP over here, where based on the sales rep and state, we are going to get an ID, we are going to start with the VLOOKUP function. Now comes the lookup value. What will be the lookup value? Lookup value is just not Joe, or it is just not CA, but a combination. So we are going to combine the value up here in the VLOOKUP function also, similar to the way we joined at the bottom in this column A, and that becomes our lookup value. So A4 ampersand for joining, hyphen in double quote since it's a text, ampersand again because we want to join A4 ampersand B4. So this becomes my lookup value. Which is my table array? This is my table array. The first value is in the first column because that's how we created it, comma, column index number. Column index number, I want the value extracted from the column of ID, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. This happens to be the fourth column, and a 0 but because I want an exact match. So we get JA5688589. Now before we copy paste any time, if we copy paste the VLOOKUP function, the very important thing is the referencing. So things that we need to refer absolutely fix is the table array. Because irrespective whether I am looking for Joe in C or if I am looking for Chin in AK, I am going to look for it in this same table array. So the table array has to be absolutely fixed. So we look up A4 ampersand B4 table array which is fixed. Fourth is a column index number and 0 is a range lookup. And we copy and we paste. And over here we get Joe OR. We get for the Joe OR the number is JR477905. If I change this to Chin and let's say we make it AL, we get the corresponding number. So this is a two-column lookup. We are looking in the two column and extracting the value from another column. Similar to the two column, you can have multiple columns also. I may have 3 columns, and based on the values from those 3 columns, I need to pull a value. So you can use the same thing over there. Any questions? Now let me show you a database in which you can appreciate. Right, if you look at this database over here, it's order, number, brand, category, what is the activity head, and what is the amount in the local currency. Here's a question by Rajiv Saha. Rajiv is asking, if we have the state variable state as numeric value, then shall we apply the same concept? Yeah, even if the, let me go back to that screen. If you have the state in a numeric value, if the numeric values are unique, yes, we can still apply the same concept on it. Because in this case, let's say it's going to be, I'm just going to put the values 1, 2, 3. And let's say over here, instead of CA, we are looking for Joe 2. So we get the answer. Instead of Chin, we look for Chin 8. So we get the answer. Vikas is saying, it's, I had spaces in concatenate parameters, so using trim is safer. Oh, in your data, if you have spaces, then yes, the first thing that you need to do is remove the spaces using a trim function, and removing the extra spaces using a trim function, and then working with your data. So that's a good idea. Okay, I was going to share you one of the larger databases. This is a small database for illustration. So we have this database in which we have order, brand, category, activity head, and the amount. Now you will see the brand is there, and the category soap is there, and the activity head is there. Now if I am looking for amount, which is a combination of these three, and I want to find the amount in the currency in this particular cell over here in the cell J8, then first thing I am going to do is, in the larger database, first create a column over here. It's a large database. We can first create a column. The first column we are going to create by joining all the three categories. And the last one. So we've got a column where we have the combination of three, and once we have done this we can call a helper column. And once we have done this, we can go to our table, the table in which we want to get our amount. So we put equal to Vlookup. Now lookup value, like I did in the previous question, we have to concatenate these three in the same order that you concatenated in your table. So first thing we put brand, followed by ampersand for joining, hyphen, ampersand, the category, ampersand, and the activity head. Oh. So this becomes my lookup value. Once this lookup value is ready, we go to the table array. Now table array, like we said, it's going to be entire table in this case, because we created the helper column first, and in the helper column we've got the concatenated value. And the next thing is a column index number. Now amount is going to be in which column? I could have used the match function, but since I'm not explaining match function in this webinar, I'll do a manual count. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Column number 6, and then 0 for exact match. So once we do this, we are getting, I think it's column number 7. Yeah. So the amount is 436 for a combination of pyjama, soap, and activity head of dress. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, moving on. Now, very important thing that people have asked me multiple number of times is there is a limitation of Vlookup, that if a particular lookup value exists more than one time in a table, I only get, or Vlookup can only extract me the first available value. It is not able to extract the next or the next available value for me, or a series of value for a given lookup value. Let's look at this table that we have. I've got sales rep, salesperson, number of customer, net sales, profit or loss. Now, what is going on over here? A same salesperson is handling different customer on, let's say, different dates and making a particular sales. So the name of a salesperson is going to be repeated in this column over here. So Joseph, John, Josh, Jamie, Joseph again, and it's being repeated over and over again. Now, if I wish to create a table like on my right hand side, in which I say sales in each occurrence, for each sales rep, I want to find out what was the amount in sale 1, what was the amount in the second sale he made, the third sale, and the fourth sale he made. So if I wish to extract multiple values using a Vlookup function, how do I go about it? So again, like you have seen in the previous function also, whenever we are supposed to do these advanced things with Vlookup, we will have to take help from other Excel functions also. Now what we are going to create, we are going to again create a helper column in this case also, and we are going to put the number. For example, this is the first time Joseph is occurring, so the output that I am looking for is Joseph underscore 1. When Joseph is occurring the second time, so I want Joseph underscore 2. Now if I have to sit and do this manually, obviously it's going to take a lot of time, it's very cumbersome. So I want to take the help of Excel functions to populate my helper column in the way I have depicted, and then go about populating the table on your right hand side. So how do we get this? Over here I am going to take help of a function called countif. Now what is the role of a countif function? Just to look at the basic syntax of countif. Now countif helps to count the number of cells within a range that meets a given condition or a criteria. If you look at the syntax, it's a range and the criteria. So in a given range, if I am looking for how many times Joseph is occurring, so if this, I pick a range and let's say my criteria is Joseph, or I could have referred to the cell that has Joseph in it, I'll get, no, this is formatted in Dan. So there are 3 occurrences of Joseph over here. So that is the role of a countif function. It counts based on a criteria. It will count how many times is the occurrence of a particular entity in the range that you give. Now how we are going to use this countif function? We are going to combine the value of B3 using an ampersand function again, and I'm going to put a hyphen, ampersand, use countif. Now in countif, instead of picking the entire range, I am going to only pick the first cell as a range, which is B3. So B3 is to B3, comma, and the criteria is also going to be B3. Why? Because I want to get 1, 2, 3 at different places. If I pick the entire range in the countif function, then the countif function is going to return 3 as an answer to me all the time. But I want, in the starting, what is the occurrence of Joseph? So if this becomes, let me fix B3 and enter. So this becomes Joseph 1. Now, the rule of copy paste is when you copy paste, nothing remains stagnant unless you put a dollar sign in front of it. It will keep on changing. So if we are going to copy paste this thing, this is how it shows up. Let's go to Joseph 2. When we come to Joseph 2, we are concatenating B7. However, the range is increasing because I did not fix B3 on the top. So as the range increases, now it is saying in this particular range, what is the occurrence of Joseph. So now this is the second time that Joseph is appearing, and that's why I get Joseph underscore 2 over here. So this is the helper column that we need to create, and this helper column was created by using a function called countif. The role of countif function is to find the occurrence of a particular element in an array. So once we have done this, so I've given this is a basic format that I've used, A3 ampersand and the hyphen sign ampersand countif. I missed B3 over here. So making the criteria as a name and finding in the range over here. So as and when the formula is moving down, the criteria is changing. The criteria in this particular A3 was Joseph. In the next, the criteria has become John, then it becomes Josh, and then Jamie, and so forth. So this is the first column. Does anybody have a question in how I created this helper column? Okay, so moving on. Now I have to populate this table in which I want to find the sales value, different sales value of Joseph. So I am finding the first occurrence and of Joseph and extracting the sales corresponding to it. Then I am finding the second occurrence of Joseph and finding the sales value of it, and so forth. Now over here, the way we have created is we put the numbers 1, 2, 3 in front of the names. So how do I get 1, 2, 3 out in the right hand side also? For that, I'm going to use a function called columns. What is the role of column function? Let's see. Just using the column functions. Columns returns the number of columns in an array. Okay, between two cells, how many columns are there? That is what is the role of a columns function. So columns, and I'm going to pick this array is to H3 only. H3, so there is only one column, answer would be 1. Now if I go ahead and fix H3 and I copy paste my formula further down, automatically I am getting 2, 3 and 4, because let's look at 3. Over here my formula has become H3, that is fixed, is to J3 because I am copy pasting. So H became I and I became J. So now it has become 3. So I am going to use this function of columns and concatenate it with our basic name of a salesperson and try to extract the sales value for it. So Vlookup, lookup value is going to be G4. And concatenating it with the hyphen sign and concatenating it with the columns functions to get automatically 1, 2, 3 and concatenating it in H3, S3 to S3. This is done. Second thing is the table array. Table array again is going to be the entire table, with the helper column being the first one. Column index number, the sales are in column number 4 and then 0 for exact match. So I get a value of the Joseph first sales is 1592. Let me show you the formula again. This is the formula, and if we do the right referencing, and we're going to copy paste the entire table, we get the various sales. So the first sale that Joseph made was 1592, second is 1610, and the third is 1624. He did not make any fourth sale, hence it is coming as not available, NA. Now Jackie did not make any sale, hence it's NA throughout. Instead of Jackie, if we do Jamie, which is the name of a salesperson over there, then we are going to get some sales value corresponding to the name Jamie. So this is multiple extraction using a VLOOKUP, and we can only do this thing with VLOOKUP by taking the help of some help columns by using the function of COUNTIF and columns. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Moving on to the last topic for today is doing extraction from multiple sheets. Now that is again something that we need to do in the industry quite a bit. Before I move on to this topic, let me show you the same concept on a larger database and a real life data. Moving on to this sheet over here. Okay. Again, we have a lot of database over here. 700 something lines. I've cut down the database to make the file a little shorter. So I've got something called a material. I've got something called material description, plants, category, brand, batch, currency, net quantity, and so on and so forth. Now what I wish to do is, in the larger database like this, I want to populate a table at the bottom where I've got the various material, and for these various material I want to get the quantity of batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, batch 4. When was this material created? Created on. I want the date created on. When was the material of ADD M0150 batch 1 created? When was batch 2 created, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we will quickly do this. First thing like we did was we created an additional column. So we can use the material because that's what we are trying to use, ampersand, and using the COUNTIF function, counting how many times this material C4 is occurring in this thing. One second. And fixing C4 so that the top part of the range is fixed and the rest keeps on moving, and then copy pasting. So we've got the occurrence like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, and so on and so forth. We go back. How the copy paste is happening? Can you please explain once again, Siddharth? Siddharth, the copy paste, what happens whenever you have a table or you have data on your left hand side or the right hand side of an empty column, like in our case we do. So what you need to do is just write one formula, and you see there is a data on my right hand side. So if I go to the extreme corner where the thin plus sign comes over, when it comes over, just double click over there. And when you double click, what it does, it copy pastes the whole formula up till the very end, when it's going to till the very end of the data on the right hand side. So that's how it is happening. Is it clear, or do I need to repeat it again? Okay, so moving on to the table at the bottom. So I've got this table, and again I'm going to use a similar function. Vlookup. So in the lookup value also we need to concatenate this lookup value D751 ampersand, the hyphen sign, ampersand, the columns, formula, and in the columns putting this as the range. And fixing the first part of my range so that when I copy paste, the first part remains there and only the next portion of my range keeps on moving. This becomes my lookup value. Then we are talking about the table array. Table array is going to be the table on the top, this entire table, comma, then moving down again to my formula. Then comes the column index number. Now what is a column index number? Let's just quickly go and count it because I still have to teach the match function. So created on is in which column? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's in the column number 14. So we can put 14 and 0 for exact match. One second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Sorry. Still getting a hash in it. We can inspect the formulas and see what's going on. Let's see if this formula is working fine or not. It is. So I've taken from column number B. I should have taken from column number. The table array I've taken from the C column. It should have been from the B column. Okay, so I've got the date. So this is how it's going to happen. Just showing you the formula once again. So Vlookup, concatenating the value of the material with 1, 2, 3 using the column function. Going to the table array, giving the column index number 15 and 0. And this is how we're going to populate the whole thing. Now again with the right referencing, if you're doing the referencing correctly, you will be able to populate this entire table. And whenever you don't have more than, let's say if somebody has only 2 batches, then in those cases over there it would be hash NA. So this is how the whole column is populated. Okay, going back and covering up the last topic, which is doing multiple sheet Vlookup. Now I'm going to show you this data. It's a 2000. This is 2010 data in which I've got the brand category and the activity. This is year 2010 summary report and some amount. Similarly, my company makes for each year we make a separate sheet in which the brand category activity head remaining the same and just understanding what is the amount spent in that particular year, and same thing in 2012. So I've got 3 different sheets: 2010, 2011 and 2012. What I wish to create is a sheet where I can do some kind of analysis and understand, okay, what is a 2010 versus 2011 and 2012. So in this case, the first thing before I can do any analysis is to collate the data, to get the data from one sheet from 3 different sheets in one particular sheet. So how do we do that? Using Vlookup. Again, I'm going to take a help of a function called index. What is the role of index function? Index returns a value or reference of a cell at the intersection, or not the index, sorry. I want to take the help of indirect function. What is the role of indirect function? Indirect returns a reference specified by a text string. Now if I give a string value to it and there is a reference that is attached to it, like if you have a name of a cell. Now if I give a name of a cell in the indirect function, it will go and fetch me the value which is connected to that particular name. Similarly, I am going to use this over here for it to automatically go to different sheets and extract the value for me. So we'll look at the Vlookup. Now lookup value is let's say we are looking for Piyama soap, comma. Now table array is which is going to keep on changing for 3 different sheets. So if somebody did not know how to use the index function, indirect function, what we would be doing is we would be writing 3 different VLOOKUPs function, one for 2010, one for 2011, and one for 2012. And while we're writing each function, we would have to go to those particular sheets and pick the table again and again. So to cut down on that, what we can do, we can just use a indirect function. So let's see how we use indirect function. Indirect, and over here again I'm going to concatenate to get the reference text. Now please understand that I'm able to use this indirect function over here because the headings that I have, it has the same name as the sheets that I have. Now when you refer to, if I did not have indirect function, I would refer to the sheets. How would I do that? 2010 sheet, I would go and I would pick this table. Now see how does the value look like? It shows up as 2010 D3 to D18. So first the name of the sheet, followed by the exclamation mark, followed by the array from where I'm supposed to pick it. So I want to make this thing automated. So this 2010 I would like to pick from here. So I'll just put an indirect function, refer to this cell, put an ampersand for joining, and what I wish to join is the exclamation mark and this. And the reference that we had picked, like this, right? So multiple sheet lookup, or we can remove this multiple sheet lookup because it is D4 in the same sheet. So in the indirect function, I'm concatenating, putting D4, which is 2010, and joining with an exclamation mark and the reference of the cells from where I want to do extraction. Because I want basically can you guys hear me? Okay, so we look up B5, indirect, D4, B3 to D18. That becomes my, this I'm going to use for my table array, because what will happen when I concatenate D4, which is 2010, with the exclamation mark, and B3 to D18, it actually looks the same thing as I would refer by using, if I would have been referring manually. Then we put a comma, the column index number, unable to see the formula. I'll just move it. Okay, and then column index number is 3 because it is in the third column, and then 0 for exact match. So over here I've got a value of 786, that is for Piyama in 2010. Now I wish to use this formula only and get the value for all. So I need to do the referencing. In B5 I'm going to fix the column B. In D4 I need to fix 4 because I want to pick 2010, then 11 and then 12. This is basically a text because everywhere when I'm making a report, my data is sitting in B3 to D18 only. So that's not changing. So just fixing these two things, I can copy paste and populate the entire thing. So I have not used 3 different VLOOKUP functions. I am only using VLOOKUP function, and I do not have to go back again and again to refer to my tables. By referring it in one time, I can get my answer. Any questions that you have, I will show you the formula again. VLOOKUP, lookup value is B5, that is the cell over here. Then we are going to use an indirect function to get the table array, because in table array over here, if I am going to show you how this looks like, So this is how it looks like. It comes up as 2010 exclamation mark B3 to D18. If I move to B11 and if I show you how this looks like, this has automatically become 2011 B3 to D18. Now, when is this going to work? This particular thing will only work when the header names are same as your sheet names. And secondly, if the data is in different location in different sheets, then you will have to pick your columns also a little smartly. If it's not in the same column again and again, you will not be able to make this as a stagnant text in your formulas. Do you guys have any questions? Because this is the last part. I'm already running over time. So let me know if you have any questions. We can take some questions. You can ask questions from the entire session that we have covered today. Like I've told you previously also, these sessions would be available to you on the YouTube. Plus you can, if you have some personal problems of your own at work or in school and colleges that you would like to share and get an answer on, you can always email it to me also. My email ID is ishani_agrawal@ivproschool.com. I'll be more than happy to help you. Whenever you're sending me some queries, please make sure that whenever you're sending me some queries, please make sure that you are sending me the data along with it, because without data, it becomes a little difficult for the trainer also to understand what is the question and what you're trying to get out of the question. So I'm going to share my email address, Ishani, ESHANI .agrawal, AGRAWAL @ivproschool.com. If you come up with any questions after the session also, please do send an email and I will be more than happy to help you. Thank you and have a good day.